Welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to help trauma therapists be their incredible selves, to be human, to be real, not just a clinician. I'm a big believer in who we are is more important than what we know. And this requires cultivating authenticity, genuineness, and vulnerability, and that requires intention. You can learn more about my courses and workshops by going to thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. Let's get started. All right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast. I'm very excited to have as my guest today, Manna Abraham. Manna, welcome.
Thank you, Guy. So nice to be here.
Appreciate that. So Manna is a true world visionary of personal growth and self-discovery. As an international renowned coach and mentor, trauma recovery specialist, founder of the emotion memory pattern release method and the 27 dimensions of being, she has dedicated her life to guiding individuals toward their fullest potential. Manna combines ancient wisdom and modern science to provide a comprehensive approach to personal growth that goes beyond the limitations of religion, spirituality, or philosophy. A core belief is that awareness is the key to alleviating suffering, negative emotions, or a stuck state of the mind, body, and energy, and addresses the modern world's confusion of consciousness through atomic spirituality and neo-healing. Manna, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. So before we get going, share with our listeners, Manna, where you're from originally and where you are currently.
I'm originally from India. I'm born in India. And now Australia is my home, South Australia, Adelaide. Yeah.
Okay. So how did all this start for you? How did you get into this?
All right. So I think my background, it will be surprising. So my background is I was a chartered accountant and a CPA. So that was my background. And but also, I think right from my childhood, I had this gift. I understand people, I know people. And because of that, I thought and I felt very transparent about me. Like there is this inherent fear that if I know you so well, then you will know me so well too. So there is no way you can hide with your emotions or just managing with a simple lie, or you can't do that. And I found it very hard to do that because I was thinking everybody knows you, everybody understands you. And I thought everybody is like that. And with my life experiences of my own loss of my mom when I was very young, and then the abuse that I had to experience from someone very close in the family, close to me in my family, I think you start questioning the fundamentals of love and trust and relationships. And you have to somehow survive. And in the survival mode, you forget everything. Anyway, so that's how my journey moved on to, well, this is happening in the background. I have this lot of information about people I understand, and I'm not calling it empathy. It's just, I know. It's that knowing, that's a gift, you know. And anyway, I had to escape from my home because I'm not in a position where I can say no to what is happening to me in the house. And I can't say no to what is going to happen to me if I stay there. So I had to not move away. I had to literally run away from my home when I was in my 18, 19, and I was at that point of time. But it's so easy to say that in the Western world, but in coming from India, that's not the norm to leave your home just like that and leave everything behind. But anyway, that took me to be a chartered accountant, and I was a CPA, and I was in US. I worked around the world. But throughout the process, one thing I realized is my trauma was continuing with me, that I couldn't sleep in the nights. There is no light, I cannot sleep. And I'm constantly terrorized by the fear of snakes. It's a way of protection for me not to sleep. So I created the mind created its own way of protection, how not to sleep. That is creating these dreams about the things that you fear the most. So where do you go? Who will address that? Who will say this is trauma? And whom do you even go and share that this is happening to me? And then everything that happens when you go and talk about someone that this is happening, then they mistrust you. And they say that you are the one who is doing it. And then people, they will alienate people from you, your own brothers. And it's very, for that point of time, that's a hard thing for a young girl of that age to comprehend. However, what I understood is I had to overcome this, because by the time now I'm talking about 27, 28, and I can't sleep. And there's no light in the night, but I'm traveling around the world by this time. I'm already a professional. I was a chartered accountant, and life, miraculously, people helped me when I had nothing. Like, okay, you study and then you can pay it off. So miraculously, strangers, they help. So you have to battle between your own values, ethics, what do you want, plus your internal trauma and traumatic memories that you have to go through. Nobody understands, because one side she's a bright child, the other side you can't function properly. But it so happened that I thought I have to somehow put an end to this. I have to do something about it. And strange enough, I realized one day I sat down and I thought, what am I doing here? And then I thought about it and I said, it's my fear that I don't want to think about it that is keeping me stuck in these memories. I sat that night, and what I did is I brought out every memory, and I constantly brought out every memory, and I thought, yes, it hurt me. Yes, it hurt me. Yes, it hurt me. And I started throwing it away from me. I just started sending it away from me. And something strange happened. After a week or so, I saw this major, biggest dream of my life, where I saw this entire big land full of snakes coming towards me, started going back. That's the thing I saw. And then again, I sat up and, oh, right. So I had to metaphorize my dreams, because for my own peace. So then I got up and I started like, okay, I started sending all these things away from me, the snakes away from me. Literally, I was doing it in my mind. I was doing it in my mind. I did that. And with that, from that day, I could sleep properly. So what I realized is it's not in the talking, it's in facing it. So the gap, the fear is the possibility of facing it, or the gap is in the possibility of repetition or reoccurrence. But once we decide to face it, then the mind is miraculous, body is miraculous, because I had created unwanted things in my body, and I was just putting on a lot of weight, and the situations were going out of control. This is not my skin, this is not me, because everything acts, body, mind, everything acts. So intelligence has got nothing to do with the experience, the things that you experienced in the past. So otherwise, I am a brilliant child, winning awards and doing all these things. And this side, the other side, this is what was happening. So anyway, so that gave me a biggest insight. And I thought, right, so it's really about facing the fear.
Excuse me, Manna. So let me just jump in here for a second. So you, in a simplistic form, talking about exposure. This is exposure therapy.
So you can either think about it as exposure, but it's not that. It's almost like a tick in the mind that you realize, I will face it. It's the decision. So what we are avoiding is not taking the decision, because it's too much to face. But the point is, it's very simple, as we say. That's why I think the reason why I'm successful is because of that, because you don't need to go through all of those things. The moment you take the decision, your body and mind will come to support you. But as long as you don't take the decision, you can keep on talking to me about it, and I can bring the same thing over and over again. But still, I will not decide to resolve it, because I can talk about it, because there is some gain, secondary gain for me, an amount of significance. Like, it happened to me. Good or bad, the nature of the mind is to have that personal significance. It happened to me. So it is about clearing those layers around it, that personal significance. And it's not that it just happened to you. And then just crossing the bridge to face it in your mind.
For example, for you, facing it meant seeing that land of snakes and literally pushing them away in your mind.
Yeah.
So how would that work for someone else, for example? What might they need to face?
Yeah. So what happens is, again, if you look at all my clients, you have to, mind is really like a child. So you have to play the game with the mind and body. So if that mind is initially seeking that significance, you have to give the significance and make it feel so special, where finally you can call it out and say, why are you doing this? Are you really thinking that this happened? Because we fabricate our memories. We do fabricate our memories, and we layer our memories because of the pain that we are creating and recreating over and over and over. So the actual experience is totally different from the memory of the experience. So in order to separate these two, we have to separate the memory, separate the emotion around it, because that memory and emotion is not necessarily connected to the experience itself. So there's no point in talking about the experience, because experience can be like, the Chinese whispers over and over and over. It can be completely something different. But as a practitioner, I have to come out of my filters of empathy and compassion and separate that, understand memory and emotion can be completely different from the experience, but it is the client's reality. But because it is a client's reality does not mean it is the reality.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that we are not trusting, it's the nature of the mind to fabricate memories and make meanings over and over. So how it works when we are working with somebody is to first separate that memory and emotion. And once we work on releasing it, it's interesting. You will see 9 out of 10, my clients will admit, yeah, I'm simply choosing a problem because it is giving me validation. It's over. So it is that ability in that, it is that facilitating that strength to that mind to see it and understand it. It is a 2-year-old abuse, a repressed memory that they don't even remember. But working with me, they get that memory. And then once they get it, once they release the memory and the emotion around it, it's nothing for them. So it's not the experience itself. So I don't even ask what happened. I don't even talk about what happened, because I don't need to know any of the stories. I only need to directly access the emotion and the memory. And once they release it, the suppressed, repressed memories, they will come up. And once they come up, then they're fine to dissociate with it. And they'll take the decision that, yeah, I'm creating this. They can see that mind and themselves separate. They can see it.
Wow. Let me just remind everyone, I'm speaking with Manna Abraham. Let's just pause here for a moment to thank our sponsors. All right, Manna. So let's walk us through, if you will, a specific example. Obviously, we don't need names, but let's get a little more specific here. Someone comes into your office. Go.
Yeah. So someone comes to my office, for example, say anxiety, right? So this person is absolutely anxious about anything. I'm anxious about what will happen to my children, what will happen to me. So they're absolutely anxious, panic attacks, and they drop down. Every time they have this hit of anxiety, they're falling down. So that's the story. So the first thing they will say, my clientele is like that. So they say that I've tried 20 years of all these therapies and I went through all these famous names and then nothing is working. So the first process is unlocking them from the trauma of talking about it and the memories that they created over and over by talking to them. So the first job is about unlocking those memories and emotions, right? And then
what do you mean by unlocking? What does that mean?
Unlocking, yeah, it's directly, I think it's interesting. So when somebody is walking into my office, they sit there. I don't ask them about their story. I don't ask their name. I don't ask what they're doing, what is their age. I don't ask any of them. They come, they sit there, and I say, right, okay, access your past and let me know what's coming up. I don't want the story. Just access your past and let me know what's the emotion that's coming up. You access it, and people will come up with it. So we don't, but that is only possible because as a practitioner, I don't have the so-called social norms of building rapport, diplomacy, getting to know your client, building that story. I don't need that because on a deeper level, I'm already connected to you. And the moment they're stepping in, they're not stepping into a clinic or they're not stepping into a therapist's office. They're just stepping in for their own peace.
Mm.
So we are erasing the barriers of all these things, and that's all it really happens. So they sit, and I recorded some of my conversations because I had to show to my practitioners. So it's a very straightforward conversation. And if that mind is ready to accept it, it will. And 99.9% of the time, this is what I do. They come in, I don't ask anything, ask them to access their emotion. They access their emotions. Their body brings up first all the memories and emotions stored. And it is surprising how much is stored in the body. It's like they want to purge, they want to puke, they feel nauseatic, they run to the loose because the body brings up the memories with that simple question.
Mm.
But it's not the question, it's the practitioner. So, and once they do that, they release it. They already had that release. And then maybe they will take 2 sessions to do that. And once the 2 sessions are done, by the 3rd or 4th session, they come up with the repressed memories have to come up. They will come up. Like they don't remember the details, some of them. Like one of this client, she didn't remember any of the details of her first 15 years. She's a South African. And she was abused, beaten by a group of people, her and her family. So her parents constantly told her not to fight back because they're being beaten in South Africa. And then she's now in Australia. So once you release the emotion around it, then the fabrication of the memory is released. Once the fabricated memory is released, they can see the experience themselves. And then, but she didn't remember any of this. She said, I don't remember any of them for the first 15 years because mind, it will help you to forget all those memories because that is not something that you can take at that point of time. But once you release this memory and the emotion around the experience, because you don't have to remember the experience to access the memory and the emotion, because the mind will bring it up. And then it is so interesting when just casually when I asked, right, so what's the name of your kindergarten school best friend? And she just gets a name. And she's in her 50s. Because the mind is almost like a child hiding, waiting for an opportunity to come out into the light.
Mm. All right, hang on here. So a couple things. You said when you were talking before about that, the anxiety example, you said it's not the question, it's the practitioner. What did you mean by that?
So as a practitioner, I think we start off thinking about we have to understand the client, know the client, build this relationship with the client, build this rapport with the client. I think we are trained in a wrong way because the idea is your client is always hiding in your shadow. And the time you take to understand the mind is the time you take to give the result. So with me, any major traumas, 50-year, 60-year traumas, it's about 6 to 8 sessions with me, and it's a maximum of 6 to 8 weeks. And in that, I guarantee so far, everyone I worked, you release it. You release this major complex traumas, whether be it first responders, be it anything else. But the key, that's what I teach the EMPR practitioners, is it is the practitioner. It is me questioning me. It is me who is being clear with my filters, my judgments, my attachments, my definitions, and my opinions. Unless the practitioner is so thorough with their own self-inquiry and they know their mind so well, you cannot see that in others. Otherwise, you can get drawn into the social norms of definitions, like, somebody is abused by their father, or somebody is beaten up by a partner for 10 days in a room, tied to the chair and burnt their clothes around them, or somebody experienced or witnessed a murder or somebody is a pedophile who abused children and now coming and saying, I have to get rid of this. If you are functioning on a moral compass as a practitioner, you cannot help these people because you're putting your definitions and your filters around that. So as much as we say we are non-biased, we are biased. And this bias is a very subtle bias of the mind and multiple partners, affairs. So if me as a woman have a judgment about any of these things, that is where the mind is hiding. And that's where you cannot help this person. So it is absolutely about being non-judgmental about yourself and accepting life as it is and releasing that personal significance that I am something, and is being okay to be a wall clock or to be an alarm. To that extent, if we can bring down our ego as practitioners, then we become that clean mirrors for the clients, and instant trust, instant relationship we are building. And it's a game of the mind. It's never about the person.
Are you talking about authenticity?
I think we are overrating authenticity because it's not really about authenticity. It is beyond that. We had to step away from authenticity to see truly, to build the ability to see yourself truly and understanding what is causing you to behave this way. What is the experience? Let's say, for example, if I put my hair up, for example, there's a reason why this mind chose to put this hair up. If I'm wearing this shawl, there is a reason why my mind chose to wear this shawl. So, to that extent, we have to become self aware of our choices, of our decisions as a practitioner ourselves. That is a journey on its own. Then it becomes easy. It's very easy to work with people. It's almost like so routine that, is this it? Yesterday, I was working with a first responder who is a police officer who saw a suicide victim and an autopsy experience. And my mind, is this it? So it is really a simple structure to release these traumatic memories. Very simple, but we are overcomplicating it.
This sounds simple, but it certainly doesn't sound easy. So you're not talking about authenticity as a practitioner. It almost feels like you said it's larger. It's like a truth.
Yeah, it's the innate truth, maybe if there is a truth, but it is going into that layers of understanding yourself, because I have Guy McPherson in me. I have. So if I don't see the guy, you in me, I can't see you as you are, because I am everything. I am the mother, I am the child, I am the parent. Again, it's a standard psychology philosophy that I am everything. I have everyone in me, but I'm not tapping into me. And I'm focusing on becoming a fixer, a helper, because I experienced something. I will share my story with the world. I experienced something, so I'll go and help everybody who needs help. So, can you see the fundamental filter is already about being a fixer or a rescuer? But I am not a fixer or a rescuer. I'm not a helper. I'm not helping anybody. But can you see, I am not trying to help anybody. That's the help, really. I am not trying to be compassionate with anybody. That's the real compassion. So I think we are overdoing compassion, empathy, rapport, authenticity. We are overdoing it because we want to be helpers, fixers, or rescuers. But we have to move beyond those labels.
How would you identify what it is you're doing then?
So I would say it's becoming ordinary. It's becoming simple. You don't have to be extraordinary. You don't have to make everything complicated because I want to be something. I want to be someone. Come back to basics. Very simple basics. So I say I am simple. I am very ordinary. What I do is very basic. That's all we are doing. We are not overcomplicating it, because there are people with 10,000 identities. everybody has so many multiple identities, at least 30, 40,000 identities. Each one of us are carrying right now. And we create those parts in us. Which part are you really helping? Whatever that mind is wanting to bring it up, to heal, to resolve, you help that identity. But every experience is loaded with an identity. So there are people who create multiple personalities. Day before, I'm working with a person. She had people, 5 names, and she's storing them as a group here. She will use each group to help her. One person out of the group she will bring out to help. So we are creating, just that maybe we are not naming it and somebody is naming it. So which identity? Right. So what I do is very simple. I'm not calling it multiple personality disorder or a bipolar. I'm not labeling it because I am already having that multiple personality disorder, if that is the label, because each one of us have multiple identities anyway, don't we?
Yeah, to a certain extent. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. So it's only the extremities somebody may be working on. That's what I call the concept of polarity. So if I can be good, that means I have the enormous ability to be bad. Just that I'm not in that situation. If I have, yeah, go on.
Excuse me. When you speak about releasing, talk about the emotions and releasing. Talk about that again.
So releasing is nothing but the awareness. Once you see it, you cannot not see it. So once you help your client to see that, once they understand that, once they observe that, once they release it, the capacity of the mind is enormous that it will bring, like say, for example, another story, this girl, lady who is working on her body image, and you think it's about weight, it's about looking thin, it's about being lean. And then interestingly, every symptom of that person is very hysterical. However, in the fourth session, the fifth session, fourth session, the repressed memory comes up because you have to allow the mind to come out. It's like the child hiding out of fear. So you have to allow that mind to bring up the memory. She brought the memory. And once that memory is up, in the fifth session, she realizes, and when I said, do you really have a problem here? And then she said, no. I think I should have a problem because if I don't have a problem, I will not get the attention. Can you see how simple it is? But we don't want to acknowledge that as humans. We want to make it much more than that so-called sympathy, empathy, awes, and compassions. We want to play that game as practitioners ourselves because we think we should be. But when you really ask, do you really have a problem here? Yes, you were abused, but do you really have a problem? And the mind says, no, I don't. Then it will go into acknowledging the reality. It will acknowledge the truth. It will acknowledge the fabrication of the meanings because we are just meaning making machines. And once it acknowledges the meaning, then it's just a matter of then comes language, where you can reframe or you can use metaphors or something else, but taking the mind to the point where, is this it really? Is it really true?
Do you feel it's, I mean, there are a lot of, treatment modalities out there, trauma treatment modalities out there. Do you find them helpful to a certain degree? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think everything is good because every person is on a different journey at a different stages of life. So someone who experienced and it is fresh in the memory, no amount of this understanding or awareness can help. So you have to create opportunities to talk and share, and so that the mind will not suppress any of them. So you need this talking therapy, you need counseling, you need CBTs, you need all of them, EFTs. But the point is, CBTs, EFTs, any other modalities you're talking about, EMDR, you're talking about eye movement, so nervous system, vagus nerve, all these symptoms that we are dealing with and working on, you are not hitting the underlying fabrication of meanings of the mind, and that is not just language. So they're all helping. Like I do have clients from Chris Duncan and Tony Robbins, and I do have clients from them too. So what has happening is we are constantly focusing on suppression and distraction from the fact, from the truth, from what it is. And we are really not allowing to see ourselves truly. So these all will help because, when you are drowning, even just a strand of grass is helpful. But once you come to the shore, it's important to really work on releasing it, going deeper and more resolving this. So it's not about, and again, if that is the case, there are so many energy healers, yoga teachers, and all these different trainers. So by this time, world should be an enlightened place, isn't it? Because of all the knowledge, books and research and reading. But it's not about that. It's the individual's journey. And especially as a practitioner, this is a practitioner's journey to go more inwards without trying to motivate themselves, without trying to push themselves into becoming something. Going inwards and then coming outwards is important. And that going inwards is just, again, you'll say everybody is self-aware, but it's not, because if everybody is self-aware, we should be on a different space right now, isn't it? It's not about that. It's going deeper than that, beyond the labels of wanting to help the world, wanting to rescue the world, wanting to fix the world, because knowingly or unknowingly, the profession you are in is the healing you need. So
knowingly or unknowingly, the profession you're in is the healing you need.
Yeah. So if I'm here, when I started off, I needed this healing for myself. So then now I realize that that's not the space for me anymore. And now it's by choice I'm here, but not because I want to fix the world, because what you see outside is what you see inside you. So the help that you think the world needs is the help you need yourself. And every client will bring out a facet of you to see deeper into that. And that subtle energy, that subtle mind patterns, that subtle thoughts, we are not even tapping into it because of the busyness we create in minds and in lives. And we think that is an understanding. And we talk about it, we create conferences, but stop and see if you can go into the subtle thoughts, into these subtle layers of the mind. And it's amazing. There is a huge world out there, and and the mind and body are very connected. Mind, body, and energy is very interconnected. And we are not really tapping into it. We are seeing in silos. So if I'm a yoga teacher, I'm the best yoga teacher. That's it. And that's where I want to work on. If I'm an energy healer, I want to be totally into energy healing. And that's what I'm working on. Or if I'm a mind, logical, analytical person, I go on language and mind. And these are all woohoo things for me because I'm this intellectual. So we had to find this balance between being an intellectual, emotional, and an abstract thinker. And we should be in that space where we can work and see all those three things together: mind, body, and energy. And in that space, there is the real healing that happens. So not just one on its own.
As we get ready to close down here, what would you say to the therapist listening? Because from what you're saying, Manna, it sounds to me as though there's a lot of awareness required of the therapist here.
Yeah.
How would you recommend or encourage other therapists listening to begin to cultivate this? Is that what you're talking about? An awareness?
Yeah. An awareness. That's right. So it's an absolute awareness. And again, I also have, that's what I'm saying. If we are really passionate to help others, we should be passionate to find ourselves truly. And awareness, and it's again my experience, that's what I'm saying, it's so subtle. Awareness is my word because I have to say something to connect to the world, but you will reach a point where you are outside that awareness too. And you will realize that you are in the way of the awareness also, because once you're out of it, it's almost like you're watching the game of life, and that there is a different awareness. So there is an awareness being a witness to a game, and there is an awareness being not even belonging to the game, and you're outside the stadium and looking at the overall stadium, right? So that awareness about you deeply, and the strength to face yourself deeply, and in your involuntary moments, being okay to question yourself and develop that self-awareness, that's the key. And once you see it, it is amazing. It's a magic. And then there is no place for your client to hide, for your client's mind to hide, because you're clean. You're a clean mirror with no smudge. So for a therapist, I would say, and that's what I teach my EMPR practitioners, truly, truly look into yourself, complete self-awareness. And that is the light you will shine on to others, instead of thinking you have to go and help somebody.
Did you start out with this perspective?
I think for me, what I really understood is that's what, as I said, right from my childhood, I can see the game of the mind. Always I could see. It's the ego. So we call it love, we call it whatever. But I always could see the game of the mind and how the mind is functioning. So it's always a mind to mind. So the submissive people are the strongest minds because they won the game. But a person with ego thinks this is a submissive person. I won the person, but the mind won the mind. So the battle of people behaviors for power or for control or for authority is absolutely different from how the mind perceives winning and losing. The mind's winning and losing is different from the person's winning and losing. And that's what I experienced from my childhood. That's what I could clearly see.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I took that knowledge everywhere. And then I realized that is where I am. And I brought it into this. However, I had to refine myself because I fall, for my very first initial sessions, I used to fall into this empathy and compassion and understanding their story and knowing their story. And then I realized it's the battle of the mind. The moment I'm asking you your story, you already bought me into your story because your mind wants significance, and I gave you every opportunity to win. So it's almost like the age-old, ancient school, ancient philosophy. Like, the disciple should be absolutely submissive to the teacher. And once the disciple is totally submissive to the teacher, that's when the learning begins. Where in this language we say the client should be ready, but client is ready, the mind is not. So it's about not the person, it's about how that mind and body, how they are functioning and what are you able to generate. And that's what I realized. So I had this knowledge and I always knew this, but I thought everybody is like that. And then I realized, no, everybody is not like that. They can't even see these things. That took time for me to understand. And once I understood that, I got into this. Yeah, we all make our own mistakes. And now I'm refining it. I refined it and I'm continuing to refine it. And now I brought it to 6 sessions to completely come out of it. And now I'm thinking, you know what? You don't even need 6 sessions. And now I'm refining it further. So how to make it even more easier. So, but that refinement is what, based on how refined I am. So I have to refine myself first.
Well, Manna Abraham, wow. What is the best way for people to get in contact with you?
I think one is my website. You have mannaabraham.com and my email address, manna@mannaabraham.com.
Okay. Now, are you working with therapists or just clients or both?
I work both. I work both with therapists, psychiatrists, and clients, individuals.
Okay. And you're working to educate them about what we're talking about here?
Yeah, so I teach what I do because people were asking me. So I teach my EMPR method with its framework, 27 dimensions of being. So that helps you to profile a person in less than 7 minutes. So my expertise is to profile a client in less than 7 minutes, a stranger. So that's what I teach through my method, the EMPR method and 27 dimensions of being. So that is the education side, education and training. And then I also work with one-on-one with individuals around the world. And I do group programs like the one now I'm running in Washington State, end of July, a Beyond Trauma program, a 3-day program. So I do these things, so educate and train. And I help them working one-on-one and in the group.
Awesome. Well, we'll have that linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Manna, I would love to have you back.
Thank you, guys.
You're radiant. I can't think of a better word than that. Thank you so much for being here.